Today's guest has invested 20 years helping remote teams simplify complex problems. He's here to share insights on how to leave the day-to-day operations behind. Please welcome Lloyd Thompson. Thanks for joining me.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me, Daniel. It's an honor to be on your podcast, and I can see that you have racked up a serious amount of episodes and been in the game a long time. So, yeah, pleasure to be here.
Well, it's never glamorous, and I was explaining it to somebody the other day. They said, "How long ago did you start?" And I said, "Well, I left my career in 2012, and I started webinars in 2013. And back in 2013, you could get leads for $1 from Facebook.
Based on bargain rates right there.
So cheap. And I had 1,500 people register for my first webinar, my very first webinar, and I couldn't believe it. Huge audience. So I did all my preparation, got my slideshows ready, set up the microphone, pressed go on, remember GoToWebinar?
Yes.
And nobody showed up.
Oh,
out of 1,500. Nobody showed up. So I thought to myself, well, I better just entertain myself. So I ran the webinar and recorded it. I thought I'll do it again. I did another webinar. 500 people registered. Nobody showed up. I did it the third and the fourth time and nobody showed up, and I couldn't believe it. And so I thought to myself, there's got to be a better way. So I took the information that I had recorded and I thought, you know what? I'm going to turn it into a book. And I put into a series of short books. And one book was called Free Drugs for Entrepreneurs. And on the front cover, there was a hand and it had pills. And so I took that book, then I got Monopoly money, and I'd put the book Free Drugs in a brown envelope. I'd stuff it full of Monopoly money, and I'd handwrite the address of a real estate agent in Sydney. And I'd send it to them in the post. And then I'd ring them. Lloyd, it's Daniel. And they'd say, Daniel who? And I'd say, the one who sent you the drugs and the money. I'd say, who's this? What drugs? What money? I said, I sent the drugs and the money in a brown envelope with your name on the front. And they'd burst out laughing. They'd go, oh, yeah, you're the author of the book.
That's brilliant.
And I did that. And each book was worth $100,000 to me, because each book would get me 4 clients who paid me $25,000. And I thought, you know what? Even if nobody shows up, it doesn't matter.
You know, I can relate to this, but the setup is nowhere near as amazing as that. I did a webinar some years ago, and it was called 9 Ways to Exit the Day-to-Day Operations. And someone said to me at the end, you know, you could turn that short content into a book. And I said, yeah, but I only spoke for an hour and something. And they said, no, there's publishers out there who will take your content and help you, you know, they'll take your transcript and they'll help you turn that into a book. And so I met this company. It's called 90 Minute Books, and they took my transcript, and I had a copywriter help me a bit with the intro and the outro and so forth. And she said, look, just one thought. You called it 9 Ways to Exit. What do you think about 9 Ways to Leave? And I said, oh, it's not bad difference. I said, why would you call it 9 Ways to Leave? And she said, oh, there's a song, 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover by Paul Simon. You know, it's kind of a bit more emotional. And I love that song. So that was where my book was born. But just the one book. It's a similar story. I give that away a lot. I mean, you can buy it on Amazon as well. And I have an audio book of it, which I paid someone with a much nicer reading voice than me to do. But that book is, people read that, they know if they've got that pain, they know that I can solve it, and that's how they end up on my doorstep. So books has been very worthwhile.
Smart move. The other thing I learned from doing a lot of networking in Sydney was I went to an event, like one of these after 5 events in Sydney, and people were just getting slaughtered. They were so pissed. They were just boozing on. And I got there and I was sober and they're all wasted. And I gave my business card to a gentleman who seemed like a really nice guy. And I gave him the business card And he looked at the front and he looked at the back and he said, "Oh, you're one of those as seen on TV people." And just started laughing in my face. And I was like, I had just been on Studio 10 with Sarah Harris and Merrick Watts and Angela Bishop and Kerry Ann Kennelly, 14 minutes of prime time television going out to millions of people. And this guy looks at my business card and he's like, "Rah!" And I was like, you know what? Maybe business cards just don't work. So instead of giving business cards, I'd give people copies of my book. And the reason why I did that was because at the end of every event, you'd see your business cards on the floor or thrown in the bin. But you know what? When you give somebody a book, they don't throw it in the bin. There's too much guilt.
It feels like a sin. You can't throw out a book. It's a sin.
It's a sin. You got to put it on the shelf and you can't throw it out. It's got to sit there. And so it became my business card. I'm not going to give you a business card like everybody else. I'm going to give you a book.
Yes.
And that was value. And that means I always had permission to follow them up without saying, just following up. It's like, hey, how was the book? What did you learn?
And it just makes it so much more special. You know, I mean, I'm so glad you brought that up because I've got the book and I just don't do that enough. You know, if I'm at a conference or sometimes I helped out at a recent conference where they were running round tables and I have some books. And if someone asks a lot of questions, I think this person is a great person to give the book to. But it makes it so much more special when you give that book to someone. And I think that's much better. I haven't used business cards for ages. They're just, it seems like it's outmoded now. So a book is definitely a better way to go. Oh, great tip.
Yeah, the other thing with books and, you know, all of us, every consultant, every coach has to find a way to differentiate themselves. And that's like all marketing. All marketing is just to differentiate yourself. It's like one word, exit or leave. It can be the difference of attention or no attention. And with my book, what I found was there was so many different ways I could use it. I flew into Malaysia. I spoke in front of 500 people and I used the book as a giveaway. If you can answer this question, I'm going to give you a book. And so somebody would answer the question, they'd run up on stage and grab the book. And then I thought to myself, I just lost a photo opportunity. So for the next person that answered the question right, they'd come up on stage and I'd say, hey, before you go, let's grab a photo. So now I've got authority. Then I thought, there's got to be something better than that. I'm going to take more books. And so I said, for the people who are in the VIP section, you're going to get a personally signed book. So now I've got photos of people lining up 20 deep to get a book signed. And what it does is it gives you authority because people go, I wonder what's in that book that are causing people to sign up. And so when you've got a book, there's value in it. And there's also an opportunity for you to have a fair trade. If I give you this book, have a photo with me. If I give you this book, give me a shout out on social media. And it's value add. It's an ethical bribe. Can those words go together? Ethical bribe?
Yeah. I you know what? Straight after this podcast, I'm going to rewatch this section and tick it off as I go. Have I done this yet? I need to print out more copies. Yeah, fantastic.
And I think the other thing, Lloyd, is some people are published authors, and that's great. One approach I have never worried about is I don't want to become an Amazon bestseller or a New York Times bestseller. That's not important to me. It's not about sold copies for me, because all that matters is that my book gets into the hand of the one right person.
Yes.
I could give away 1,000, 10,000 and make no sales. But if I put it in the hand of the right person who can work with me, they look at that and they say, this guy's speaking my language. It's the job interview. It's the qualification. It's the due diligence. They read and go, well, obviously the next step is to work with the person. But we don't have to be an Amazon bestseller or a world-class bestseller. I'm just a published author. And I'm really direct with my clients. And I say, look, there's no vanity here. I've never sold a copy of my book. I just give it away. And the people who read it and like it end up working with me. And they go, that's no bullshit. And so for people, just be straight.
I feel like with a title like Free Drugs for Entrepreneurs, I'm gonna have to read that now. You got me. It's an amazing hook.
It's marketing, isn't it? You know, one thing that you and I both need is we need to have a lot of drugs, but we need to have ones that have no side effects and that aren't illegal. And, you know, what do we want? We all want a bit of confidence. We get confidence when we got a serotonin rush. We get confidence when we have a dopamine hit. We get oxytocin. And when all these free drugs are circulating around through our body, we feel confident. We feel on fire. We feel unstoppable. We'll get on a podcast. We'll get out of our comfort zone. We'll do a live speech. But we've got to be high. But it's got to be legal.
And for me, I know before I do something like this or before I've got a call where I need energy, it's normally exercise or breathing or something like that. Or coffee as well, which might not be the healthiest hobby, but I'm definitely into that. Oh, cheers to that.
There's a vitamin. It's called vitamin V. And it's called the voice. And through voice, we can create vibration. And if we hum, for example, like this, it's not very attractive. When we hum and create that vibration, it creates vasodilation, and a lot of oxygen starts to get into the blood. Those vibrations also relax the muscles in the face. It engages the lungs, it engages the diaphragm, it engages the vagal nerve. It calms the mind. So with a little bit of vitamin B, a little bit of vibration, a little bit of voice, like just for 30 seconds, it relaxes the body. But it also loosens up the vocal folds and the voice box. And so instead of our voice being really tense, and I think we've all had that before, we're at an event, somebody hands you the microphone, your voice goes, ah! Instead of going up,
yes,
it relaxes and it drops down. And specifically for men, we have to have a tone of voice that commands authority. Like imagine I'm the Prime Minister of Australia and I got a high voice going, we're going to go to war. Let's go to war. I ain't going to war with a voice like that. But if our leader says, we're going to war, it's a command. You're like, well, that's a voice of authority.
Yeah.
And so just a little bit of vitamin V quickly changes the physiological state of the body and all the organs that engage us for speech.
I've never seen that. That is fresh for me. I've never seen that one before. That's a golden nugget. I can't wait to try that out.
Have you had any voice lessons or voice coaching before?
No, I've never had voice coaching. I mean, I'm for my presenting, so I've joined Toastmasters, which has been very good for just to up my presenting game. But in terms of voice, no, I've never focused on improving that. So I think there's a whole world by the sounds of things that I am unaware of.
I flew to America and I was doing Brian Tracy's Speakers Academy. And it's a great event. And it's 10,000 Aussie dollars for 3 days. So it's a significant investment. And I got over there and learned a lot. I really learned a lot. And I paid for the program with a $25,000 sale before I even left. So it was worth it. And I sat next to Brian for those 3 days. And I said to Brian, I said, so I know how to structure a speech. I know the right words to use. I said, what's next? And he said, you need to get a voice coach. I said, a voice coach? I'm not a singer. He's like, no, a voice coach, somebody to teach you how to articulate words and to project your voice. I was like, okay, well, why would I do that? And Brian went on to explain to me that during the peak of his career, he took a year off speaking. And during that year, he just developed his speaker's voice, his tone, his tempo, his pitch, his cadence. And he hired a Hollywood voice coach. And he said the year that he came back with his new voice, everything changed. People took him more serious. He got more gigs. His clients were getting better results. And he said that the biggest breakthrough for him in his speaking was learning how to control his voice. So I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I put a post on Facebook. Said, do I have anybody here in my Facebook network that knows a voice coach? And a actor who follows me in Sydney, never knew he followed me, but he's on my social media. He reached out to me. He said, look, I'll introduce you to a guy named Bob Korf. He said, Bob Korf is Hollywood's voice coach. So I researched Bob Korf. His website's korfvoice.com. And I went through this list. He had coached 1,000 Hollywood A-list celebrities. Samuel L. Jackson. I like his voice.
Nice.
Channing Tatum. I like his voice. Robin Williams. I liked his voice. The cast of Star Wars, and the list just went on. Oprah Winfrey. And I thought, wow. So I reached out to Bob, and that was in 2016. And he's been my voice coach ever since. And with his help and Brian's, I made $100,000 of extra sales in 100 days. Nothing changed.
Right.
The pitch deck was the same. It was just the voice. And I went back and I looked at a video. I was sitting in my car in Sydney and I was doing a YouTube live and my voice was like, "G'day, ladies and gentlemen. Daniel Thompson here, performance coach for the New Rich." And I went, oh my gosh, my voice. How disgusting. And I listened to it
now.
And you can't, and I was cringing going, that was my voice. But when I contrast it today, the pitch has changed. The authority has changed. And it was one of the best investments I ever made.
I have to look into it. And I'll be reading your book.
Get some drugs. Get some drugs. You've been on an interesting journey and you've invested 20 years helping people simplify complex problems. How did you start doing what you do? Where did your journey start?
Yeah, I think if I wind it all the way back, I think it came back down to I grew up in a military town and I was destined to join the army. And in my hobby life, I was tinkering with the family computer. And one day I broke it. Someone came round, started typing some words into the black screen. And I wasn't that interested at the time, but they went away. When they went away, I started to type some words into the black screen and I broke the family computer. So we called him back, came back. He typed some more words. I said, I won't do it again. Till about a week later, and I thought, I know what he was doing. I'll have another go at that. Type some more words in there. Break the family computer. And I just became really interested in this. When the guy came back, he said, look, if you're going to fix this again, if you're going to make break the family computer again, read this manual, MS-DOS 5, read that. I would have been 12 or 13. And I just found that was one of the most interesting things I had to read. I wasn't really a reader, but it was out of desperation. You know, how do I fix this thing? How do I learn how to? It's like mechanics. It's like Lego for adults. You know, programming. So I became a programmer. So I went to university, became a computer programmer, and then realized that I was one of the few programmers in the division that I was working in that could explain what was really going on to the upper management in a way that they would get it. And so I ended up in consulting work and then started to have small offshore teams. So started my career very early on. I was having teams offshore, and it just seemed natural to me to, rather than treat them like someone who's over there, just treat them like an extension of the team, get to know them, build rapport, find out what they're interested in, and talk to them regularly. And so I became skilled with running remote teams. And I think that sounds obvious, perhaps to you and I, about that's the way you would work with a team that's remote. But I think some people think they're just someone behind the screen over there and you just tell them to do work, and that work will go nicely if you just do that. You know, they're not an extension of your team. And so I ended up over time managing quite large remote teams. I eventually moved into management and had teams of developers and project team all over the world, and ended up working in payments, investment banking, running large technical teams. And then things changed during COVID for the better. So during the COVID pandemic, during the lockdown, in my hobby life, I was going surfing every day before work. And then the lockdown happened, and I had a bit longer to surf before work in the morning. There was no longer a big commute. And so my personal life in some ways got a lot better thanks to the lockdown. But then I started dreading going back to a brightly lit office. I mean, I'd had a taste of working remote full time, and I really liked that. And the team that I had that were located in Sydney were already used to some flexible working arrangements, because I've never been a line of sight manager. I was always someone that's like, what are the outcomes that we need to measure? How can I support you in that? Periodic catch-ups to support them. And my remote team they were remote. It was familiar how we would interface. So my working life, everything carried on as per usual. The folks in the local office had laptops. They were working from home. But I just had this deep desire to carry on working fully remotely, and that's what I wanted to do. And through a bit of luck, I met a business coach. And a business coach for someone in corporate is a world away from me. You know, I was in corporate delivery, running teams. I wasn't doing any sales or marketing or anything like that. My job in corporate was deliver projects, run teams. And how I met this business coach, bit of an odd connection. I started giving surf reports for fun maybe 10 years ago. And during COVID, these surf reports just blew up. I started an audio report on WhatsApp for a few friends, and then in a short amount of time, suddenly I had 150 people tuning in every day, listening to my 30-second report of what the surf conditions were, what board I would take, who I saw, and see you in the water. And that was it. And I think it was just a distraction. And so one of the people that was listening in was a business coach called James Schramko. He used to be located around the corner from me in Freshwater. And I just asked him one day in the surf. I said, look, I'm good. I hear you're a business coach, and I'm good at running large remote teams, department level, dealing with complexity, making it simple. But I want to work fully remote. Like, how can I do this? And that was the seed and the beginning of many conversations. And where we ended up with was fractional integrator. And he said, have you heard of an integrator? And yeah, it sounds like a tech term to me. But what he really means is a very specific type of COO role. And that you have this concept of the visionary, who's the strategy, outward focused, big ideas person. And then the integrator, who's the COO, general manager, director of operations, the make it happen person. It's that pattern. And COOs can take many different shapes. But he said, you sound like an integrator. And so where we landed on was this idea of fractional integrator. And now this is actually a pretty well-known idea. But 5 years ago, this was not really a thing. You know, it had fractional CFOs and fractional CMOs, but not really fractional integrator. And so we landed on the idea of a fractional integrator service. And so this idea was batted around a bit. And it came to a point where he said, look, I think I've actually got some clients who would be good for you. And I got to the point where at this point in my career, I could take a gamble. I didn't have any serious commitments, and I had savings.
So a surf report.
And a very important surf report, which had to be maintained. I'd been in corporate for my entire career, from one to the other, and I'm grateful for that experience. But I just went from corporation to corporation. Like my whole career, I was just ready for something different. And I think many people went through that during COVID. They just thought, what do I want to change here? And I was ready to take a risk. I was ready to know that even if it didn't work, I'd just go back to contracting. So I quit my job. I gave them 6 weeks notice. And in the last 2 weeks of my notice period, and he went, hey, I think you should talk to this guy. He's got a big ecom based in Vancouver. He's got a team of 25, 30, and he sells a great product. He is doing about 20 million a year. Why don't you talk to him about some of the ops challenges he's having? So I spoke to this guy, and very classic, what I've become to see is the classic visionary. And that is they do have the big ideas. They might be great at selling. They might be great at marketing. They might be great at products. They do tend to chase after shiny objects and try and spin 100 plates. And
you can't stop spinning them.
Yeah, and it's the challenge they have. They start all these plates
and
then it's like, oh no. And so a lot of them, I would say, have ADHD, which is probably their superpower in many cases. But things like operations destroys their soul, like putting in repetitive rhythms, dashboards, feedback loops, regular cadence to check in on team. That's boring stuff to them.
So granular.
Yeah, it's like they don't want to be working on that. Wouldn't it be great if they could give that to someone who could take that pain away? So I had a conversation with him, and he said, yeah, come in, let's do something. So I came in working for him as on a fractional retainer. And for him specifically, what I was looking at is they didn't really have concept of planning work out for a long period in advance. It was just the founder scattergunning teams with tasks every day, 16-hour days until he was exhausted, and then moving on to the next thing. So what that meant was he didn't really have the bandwidth to then think about the new deal that he wanted to do or focus on the passion of creating again. So I took that side for him, helped the team plan, started like, okay, here's video. He has video team, designers, software developers, and then he's got a whole nother world of production for product and warehousing. So just putting in repetitive rhythms and feedback loops to get him out of the repetitive, boring stuff. And the big surprise was I thought that now I've freed him up of this stuff, he will work a normal day. No, this person is not going to work a normal day. So the thing that I would say is, I reckon I can get you more time back. I did get him more time back, but he's just going to fill that with something else. And that's what he did. So he just went into video, spending his time on video production. And so the next thing was, and I got referred a marketer, SEO business, and then someone who works with YouTube and works with the likes of Alex Hormozy and other characters like that on helping them pump up their YouTube channel. So I found myself across 3 clients working between e-commerce and marketing agencies. And my background wasn't marketing and e-commerce. My background was delivering complex projects, dealing with people and teams. But there was a lot of patterns, and I also did learn a lot on the way. And when I got a 4th client come my way, so now by this point I've got 3 clients. I've hired a person to do admin work for me, but I now realize that 3 is my own personal max. And so I hired someone else through my network to take on a 4th client. So I was getting referrals, both from now my existing clients and my coach. And so that's how this was born. So another 6-7 months later, I had a small couple of operators doing most of the work. I was still in one, and now quite a few years, so 5 years later, now I've got a small team of operators, UK, US, and here, and they now pretty much follow the model I had in the beginning, where they take on up to 3 engagements at a time, and so that's what we do. It's pretty simple, and the pain that the clients are having is they're stuck in the day-to-day. They're typically high visionary. They've not yet experienced a good general manager yet, or they have a general manager, but they're under load and they're struggling. They're not yet that comfortable with handing over the reins because they've been in the business doing everything for a long time. And so we're a good transition for them. We come in, We help get them out. We help stabilize operations. We put the, I would say, boring stuff in, like the rhythms of dashboards and feedback loops in. And we look to make ourselves redundant. So it can be that they have, if I talk about my first client, the big e-commerce, eventually they've got someone in the team who wants to step up. No problem. We train them up. They can see how we're running the systems and the meetings, and they step up. And then also the other clients have chosen, oh, okay, we're now ready and comfortable for a full-time general manager or COO. And so now we hand over to them. And so that's where my business has ended up. And it's a small team, but due to the ability to work remotely and from anywhere, we have work all over the world, mostly in the US and the UK and a little bit in Australia. So that was the journey. And I've been liberated from corporate world, although I'm grateful. And that's where I've ended up.
Isn't it interesting with founders and the people who, one of the things that they want is they want their time back. And I think the illusion is that they want the time back so they can have more holidays, spend more time with their families, have a breath. But no, they just want more time so they can create more problems for themselves.
Yes.
Create more challenges,
yes.
Create more drama. And people look at them and they're like, I don't get it. But the other thing I think with this first client of yours is, I see it with mine, is they have this feeling of discontent. Okay, I've got this far, my business is at 20 million. Everyone's like, shouldn't you be happy? No, business should be at 30 million or 40 million or 50 million.
Yes.
And then they are just constantly looking to get more time back to get on to the next thing. And people think they're crazy, but it's how they operate. And for them, getting down into the details, into the granular, it's so taxing on the mental bandwidth. They're big picture people. They're visionaries. They're not down in the weeds. And somebody who's got that complementary skill set brings them a lot of value.
Sorry, there's a siren happening. I don't know if it's picked up there.
Did you commit a crime?
They're coming up any moment. It's those free drugs for entrepreneurs.
The drugs.
Yeah, I must admit, I see that a lot, and I can relate to that. I want to be further along. For me, I won't compromise on. I'm not what I call a scaler bro, though. I won't compromise on amount of time that I have. I want to live. I used to have a KPI of 1 surf a day. I've dropped that now because I've got an 8-month-old child, so I've had to swap the 1 surf a day with spending a bit more time with my child, which is a blessing. But I do see that with a lot of founders, that they create goals, they look to the horizon, but the problem is the horizon's always moving.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a great book I read, I think it was Dan Sullivan, called The Gap and the Gain. And the lesson was always measure backwards. If you look at where was I 5 years ago compared to now, then you can really see it. Where was I 3 years ago? Where was I 1 year ago? And then you really see the journey. And it is important to look forward and have a vision. And I think that's the starting point of the conversation with the people I work with. Like, where are you right now? And where do you want to get to? And they'll say, here. And I say, well, paint a picture for me. What does it look like? What's your customer service? How do you interact with your team? What are you doing? What are the values in your business? Who do you attract and who do you repel? Tell me about that. And they can create a really vivid vision, and that's fantastic. And then the important bit is, and then to take that and turn it into measurables that I can say, well, okay, let's measure you along your goal. Let's get a weekly scorecard and measure where we are heading towards that goal. And so I've had questions before, like where does it start? Do we do OKRs or KPIs and things like that? I'm like, it's much simpler than that. Tell me where you want to go. Let's think about what we need to measure to see that we're going there. But we're really focused on the current day-to-day. So your vision informs what you're measuring, but it's the day-to-day right now that's showing us the health. And you need both. And I think it's very important to have a good mindset to be able to measure backwards, but also take stock of where you're going. And I actually find that a lot of founders don't articulate their vision enough. And actually, my second client was an SEO business, 2.5 million revenue, team of 12. And I asked him about his vision at the beginning, and he explained to me this white glove service, just a few customers, very high touch. And it was a very good vision. And then I asked the team, I said, hey, what do you think the vision is for this business? And they said, well, it's let's increase the amount of clients that we have and get throughput higher and maximize for efficiency. That was what I was getting from them. And the disconnect was massive. And I said, how did this happen? Well, guess what? The founder hadn't written it down and articulated it. And so once we had that written down, shared with the team, we were then able to create goals, create a new product, different pricing. So we still kept the existing people on, new product, higher pricing, high level of service. And a few months later, they're able to then attract a client for the new offering. And that's now the building of the new. But it all starts with having that vision.
And it's, I think with a lot of founders, they've shared their vision before and they've been criticized. And it's very common in goal setting. One of the things we say in goal setting is never tell people your goals because people can't criticize you. Like my mum, I was telling the story the other day. I said to my mum, I want to move to Dubai. I want to become cabin crew. I want to work with Emirates Airline. First response is, are you gay? Like, what? I said 17 of the best looking women from around the world. The other guys are gay, so they're no competition. More for me. And I think we've all had that. We tell somebody our goal and somebody criticizes you immediately, especially the ones that you love. And so we learn just to keep very tight lip.
Yeah.
And sometimes people think it's also sociably unacceptable to talk about money. One of my clients, he had one of those beautiful big visions and it's we're going to impact 7 billion people on the planet, blah, 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 blah. And I said, can you just cut the bullshit? Tell me, what do you really want? He said, Daniel, I fucking hate this business.
Wow.
I don't like it. It just makes a lot of fucking money and it's going to fund my next business. I said, are you okay with that? He says, yes. And I said, good, that's your vision. This business is designed to be a cash cow and it's going to fund my future star. And when he accepted that, everybody else went, oh yeah, we knew that already. And they were just all on the same page. And that's okay because there's people out there who only care about money. And you shouldn't be shy of that. Just speak it out loud. Because for me, I don't care too much about money, but I don't have to think about it too much either. But I say to people, look, as long as we do the deal, the money's secondary. Let's just get the deal done and we'll figure out the rest later on. But my wife's like, no, you got to talk about the money. I'm like, don't worry about that. But that's her job in the business. My job's to get the business, her job's to keep the money. But we've got to be cool.
People can tell when you're not authentic. I can sell a bullshit vision when you've spoken to the founder and then you see the vision. You can tell if there's a disconnect when you get to know them. So I love the fact that that you managed to get this founder to just be straight with you, straight out like that.
Just be real. And the most important part is it's being real with yourself. I've met people and they say, I don't like people. That's okay. You don't have to like people. Dogs have a higher frequency than humans. Dogs resonate at a frequency of about 500. The average human resonates at a frequency below 150. That's why people like dogs. They get a high frequency. If you don't like humans, that's okay. Get a job in tech. Talk to the computer. Break your family's computer. We've got to learn to become cool with that because I like my customers and my job is to serve my customers and my job is to believe in my customers. But you know what? I'm competitive and your enemy is now my enemy. I hate your competitor as much as you do. Yeah. And so this is what I say to my customers. I don't like competition. I'm an athlete. I got to kill the competition. And if I work with you, We're going to kill the competition. They're like, Daniel, you can't say that. Well, I'm not going to stab or shoot them, but we'll just make it really hard for them to make sales and make money. And they go, gee, that's pretty direct. I said, why are you hiring me? You want to make more sales? You want to make more money? Good. Well, there's 100 customers in this marketplace, and they've got to be shared between you and your competitors. That's it. You can't create new customers in this geographical area. So you just got to dominate, and now you've got to get 60 and 70 and 80% of the marketplace. And that's competition. You've got to win and somebody's got to lose, but that's competition.
For many businesses, especially B2B, the founder, the highest order thing they can be doing is strategy and sales. And I think that's the last thing you typically give away is that sales position. And we worked with a guy for a couple of years, actually, so a lot longer than our normal sort of 6 to 8 months make ourselves redundant. And he had a quite a big team, but he found that he would be doing stage selling and then later on webinars, and then he'd come back and then he'd have to deal with all the team issues. And he's like, I've got a great team, but it's emotionally exhausting handling the issues when I've got to be both a stage seller and live that world and then come back and be involved with the team. And so just the simple act of putting one person between him and the team, so he only has to talk to one person, makes his life a lot easier. And he told us what he got the best out of that is return on emotion. That's such a great little soundbite, return on emotion, because now I just don't feel emotionally exhausted. So,
have you heard of social health before?
Tell me more about that.
There's a factor that when I'm analysing the vocal biomarkers of business owners and profiling, I'm looking at social health. And social health can be elevating or social health can be limiting. And when we have limiting social health, every interaction we have with a human drains us of our emotional energy. And I was speaking to a real estate agent in Melbourne last week. We had a look at his a sales assessment I do. And I said to him, your social health is limiting. What's an example of this? He said, Daniel, imagine this. I start my day with 10 golden coins in my pocket. And every time I interact with somebody, they take a golden coin out of my pocket. He said, after 10 interactions, there's no gold left in my pocket. I am depleted. I have nothing left. And all I want to do is go home and lay down on the couch. I'm exhausted from humans. I said, that's interesting. He said, but my wife, she starts the day with nothing in her pocket. And every interaction she has, somebody gives her a golden coin. And by the time she comes home, she's got 10 coins in her pocket and she wants to party. He said, I want to be like that. You know, we have to be mindful of this ROE, return on emotion, because emotions are more contagious than COVID. If you live at a very low frequency, you will pull me down to yours. Like, you know, when you're in the room with an angry person and you start to feel agitated?
Yeah.
It's their vibration pulling you down. It's called entrainment. If you spend time with somebody who's really anxious, have you noticed that you become anxious as well?
Yes.
You become worried, overwhelmed, and it's because they're operating from fear. Your heart and its magnitude is 5,000 times stronger than the magnitude of your brain. This is why we walk into a room and we can feel people's emotions. Emotions are contagious. You know, when you spend time with 5 surfers and you go surfing with 5 good surfers, you become better. Why? Because you're picking up on the vibe. But have you noticed if you go out with 5 surfers who are worse than you don't get any better. You stay the same. And so we feed off this particular vibration. And what you're talking about, ROE, it's a real deal.
Yeah.
Each person either gives us a coin or takes one away from us.
And it's interesting what you say about the heart giving off that vibration, because a friend of mine had a quadruple heart bypass, and he felt like his rhythm and his temperament was different after he had that. So I don't know where the science is in there, but maybe his heart was beating to a different tempo after that, and that affected his rhythm.
There's a book
knows?
called The Heart Code by Dr. Paul Pearsall. And when he wrote it, people were laughing, this is bullshit. What he discovered was that people who had organ transplants would wake up with other people's memories. People who had organ transplants started to have a different taste in music, a different taste in food, a different taste in alcohol. There was also one story that Dr. Paul Pearsall told. He said that there was a young girl and she was murdered, but they were able to save the heart. The heart was compatible with the recipient, and this young girl got the heart. They put in the heart, the transfer was successful. In the following weeks and months, she would wake up with nightmares, the same nightmare over and over and again. And she's saying to her parents, I feel like somebody's trying to kill me. So they go back to the doctors, they get the psychologist to analyze her, they start to do dream interpretation. And through the dreams, they came up with a sketch of this killer. The police went out and looked for this person, and it was the killer of the woman, or the young child who owned the heart. And through the dreams and through the heart's code and the memory in the cell, they were able to find the killer and the murderer of the girl. And this happens all the time. But that's physiological. But we have another thing called memetics. Genetics is the passing down of the genes between the bloodline. You probably have been told by your mother, you're just like your father. Your father probably says, you're just like your mother, or you're just like your grandparents. We might look like them, sound like them. That's genetics. Memetics is a mind virus. And memetics are transferred not through urine, blood, and feces or sex. It's passed through conversation. So you know when somebody gives you a really good idea, through conversation you start to think about it, like your business coach, Jason. Was it Jason?
James, yes.
James gives you an idea, and now it's like, oh my gosh, I see it everywhere. You start to talk about it to other people. You start to find more examples of this. It activates the reticular activation system, and now you see it. It's like when you buy a new car. I bought a new X-Trail, had never seen them on the road. Now the bloody things are everywhere.
Yes, true.
And so it's a meme. It spreads from one mind to another.
We see our same car everywhere now. And I was like, there's another one. There's another hybrid, that model. And yeah, it's the same.
Yeah. Where was it before? Somebody playing a joke on you? It was always there. It's just outside of awareness. So memetics is a mind virus. And coming back to where we started from with the vision, you've got to be able to articulate the vision with emotional integrity. If you're a person who's just wired to make money, be honest with yourself and be honest with others and say, the reason why I'm doing this is because this is a great opportunity to make money and to fund the thing that I'm really passionate about. That's critical because people buy, it's like Simon Sinek says, they buy why you do what you do. There's a science that I use when I'm profiling business people. And we're having a look at the science of motivation. And there's 14 motivators that impact all of us. They can be at different levels and in different hierarchy. And when we're building sales teams, there's one motivator we're looking for, is somebody who's exclusively driven by money. Because it has been proven. There was more than 300,000 of the world's top salespeople, which means the people who are earning the most money. All of those people had money as their number one or number two most important driver. And everybody else was below that in income and sales. So the biggest predictor of success in terms of internal motivation is somebody who's driven by economics. And we can summarize that. And a friend of mine, his team was doing $240 million US in sales of supplements. And I said, why are you so successful? He said, it's the foundation of building my team. I said, what is it? What's the secret? He said, you don't want the needy, you want the greedy. He said, I don't want people who need $500 to pay my bills this month. He's like, I want people who say, I want to spend $50,000 on a new car. I want to go on a $100,000 vacation. I want to spend $5 million on my house. He said, you don't want the needy. People, I just need $500 to pay the bill. He says, you want the greedy. And the other word, which sounds nicer than greed, is ambition. Greedy people are ambitious. And the thing they always say, I want more. I want more market share. I want more customers. I want more teams. I want more systems. I want more time back. I want more opportunity. I want more recognition. I want more attention. They're ambitious. And if they succeed, all of us succeed. If Qantas succeeds, everything else that supports Qantas succeeds. But if Qantas says, we just want to do one international flight per month, and we're going to have one aircraft, the whole system fails.
And it's interesting because different team, you have different profiles for different characters in the team. And I think it makes sense to have sales folks motivated by their performance. They're going to be paid on performance. They're going to be commission based. You want them to be hungry for it. But then there's different folks, and it's quite often internal operations, who are focused on stability and readying the ship and making things run smoothly. And they're quite often more, I just want things to be predictable and regular. And so they're a very different profile. And quite often they're not financially motivated. They might be time motivated. So I definitely see that.
You're a surfer. I'm a surfer. And just because you want to be a surfer and a really good surfer doesn't mean that you can. There's things I want to do on a surfboard, but I'll never be able to do it. Doesn't matter how much I practice, I'll never be able to do it. It's like my son, Caesar. He wants to play basketball. There's people who are 7 foot tall playing basketball. There's people who are 5 foot. Just because you want to become a basketballer and you're 5 foot doesn't mean that you can compete in the NBA against the 7 footers. It's impossible. And so when you build a team, a lot of people want to be a manager. They want to be a leader. They want to make money. But the way that they're hardwired doesn't mean that they can. For example, a doctor who works in the emergency room, who is very low on the altruistic scale, will never succeed in surgery. Because that type of doctor doesn't care about the patient. They're too busy judging what the patient did. Oh, this person was drink driving. Fuck, then I'm not operating. No, you want a doctor who's very altruistic, who says, I don't care what color your skin is. I don't care about your sexual preferences. I don't care if you paid your tax, you came to this country illegally. I don't care if you were drinking, smoking, shooting. My job is to care for the human and to give you the best care possible. And like when you think about that, who does it make sense to have working in the emergency room? You can't control who comes in. They're just brought in. You want the doctor who is high in altruism, who just wants to help society be better without the judgment.
And I see when I go into businesses so we operate 5 to 25 staff. That's our typical sweet spot for fractional. And when they've got over 10 members of staff, I generally see a pattern where it's very likely they're going to have a team member that's not performing because of attitude, not because of skill. And so there's an overlooked thing where founders very much focus on skill when they hire people, but they don't spend time thinking about what's the character of the person. And character is not easy to assess. And quite often we see that these business owners have got people in their team, they've been there a while, and they now feel held hostage by them because they might be good at the thing, But if I let them go, it will have this temporary impact. And so, and it's like when they engage someone like us, they feel like they want someone else to just tell them, like, they've already seen it. They need someone else to say, yeah, I can see there's a problem over here. And especially businesses that have started from the ground up, they might have employed a relative, the cousin or something like that. And then suddenly the cousin's not performing and they're like, oh, this is going to be awkward if I
Do you know what the name of that is called? What you're talking about?
Nepotism?
You can. It's when we profile people, this is one of the things we're looking at. And what you're referring to, it's called an external frame of reference. And there's some people who have an external frame of reference. If somebody says jump, they'll jump. But somebody with an internal frame of reference will say, you're telling me to jump? Fuck you, go jump yourself. I'll jump when I'm ready. So you got two people. And the question is, how do you know you're doing a good job? For somebody with an internal frame of reference, internally, they will know we're doing a very good job. That's good for some entrepreneurs, but it's always not good for the customer. Where other people say, how do I know I'm doing a good job? Somebody's got to tell me. So one knows internally, one knows externally. The person who knows internally, you can never tell them what to do because only they know what to do. But the person with an external frame of reference is waiting for you to be told. And if you tell them as the coach or the consultant, fire this person, they'll say, yes, thank you so much, I'm going to do it. And they'll go and do it immediately. They could have done it for 5 years, but because they got an external frame of reference. Well, you know what, with people with an external frame of reference, they're the best at customer satisfaction because they say, we are not the judge on quality. The customer is. And they will always ask the question to the customer, are we doing a good job? But the internal frame of reference person's like, fuck the customer. I know what they need. I know it better than them. I'll never ask them. And they lose a lot of customers because they never check. So yeah, you can actually detect these things, and positioning these people in businesses in different places has a big payoff. If you've got teams who are doing customer service, you want people with an external frame of reference every single time. If you're an entrepreneur and you're building something and the world hasn't yet accepted it and nobody believes you, you've got to have an internal frame of reference. And I have a cousin like this. He employs 550 people, incredibly successful. And I said to him, who do you look up to? He said, nobody.
Wow. He's confident.
I said, who do you look up to? And he said, myself. And I said, why? He said, because nobody has done what I've ever done. He said, there's nobody else out there. So I've got to look up to myself. I've got to absolutely believe in myself. And I have been watching him and working with him closely since I was 14, more than 34 years. He's never questioned himself. He's never questioned his vision. He's never worried about the mistakes that he's made. He's learned from them. But still nobody's created what he's created. And so he says, I've got to look up to myself. And that's the classic internal frame of reference. And if somebody says it'll never work, you'll say, I didn't ask your opinion. It can't be done. You'll say, yeah, maybe for you, fuck off. But for me, I'm going to do it. And we also need a good dose of that. If nobody's done what we've done.
I think it's balance, isn't it? Because you need to be able to know, you need to have resilience to say, okay, well, that didn't work. I'm going to change course a little bit and carry on because I'm sure there's something down here. But I think you also need to be able to listen to external advice.
Well, internally, like as the business owner, oftentimes this is hardwired and it's very hard to change. And if we do change it, it's only called an adaptation. So you surf, are you natural or goofy? Are you left or right foot forward?
I'm a goofy. Yeah.
You're goofy, so you're right foot forward. Have you ever tried to surf left foot forward?
I don't think I have, actually.
It's virtually hardwired, isn't it? And if you did, you'd have to go back through the learning phase all over again, but it would be so painful and there'd be no enjoyment. You'd be like, yeah, fuck it, I'm going back to goofy.
That time is so valuable out there. You know, I just want to make sure that I'm maximizing my time in the water doing it the way I know works best. So I would be straight into goofy.
That's it. So like human psychology, can adapt, but it's exhausting. But in business, we can actually build a team of people around us who have got those complementary approaches. You can have an internal frame of reference as a business owner, but you can also have a consultant who's got an external frame of reference and will give you a different viewpoint. And that's when we get the balance. Okay, well, I didn't see it like that. You could build team members around you who have a balance of both, because some people have that perfect balance. So you can build your team. You don't necessarily have to become everything. It's like the visionary. Your job's the visionary. Your job is to focus on the big picture. Your job is to create chaos. Our job's to create order from your chaos.
Yeah. Who, not how. It's, I'm going to be in this spot. This is what I'm good at. This is my strength. And I know I need a who to look after operations or a who to look after marketing. It's incredibly important.
How long can you surf for without doing a weddy warmer?
Sorry, wetty warmer.
You don't know what the weddy warmer is?
What's that?
Well, you pee in the wetsuit to keep you warm, but it also attracts the shark.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes on the podcast, we drink 4 cups of tea before we get on and coffee throughout, and we're busting, and that's me.
Okay. Well, I could take a pause right now.
It's been wonderful to have you here. Look, before we go and wrap it up, where can we learn more about the work that you're doing, and where can we follow you?
Thanks, Daniel. Yeah. If you want to head to my website, virtualdoo.com. So the DOO stands for Director of Operations. And so just head to my website, or you can also find me, Lloyd Thompson, on Instagram. Lloyd Thompson, Lloyd S. Thompson on Instagram, virtualdoo.com, and Lloyd Thompson on LinkedIn. So easy.
We'll go there, and we'll also check in on the surf report for the Northern Beaches.
I should put a separate link up for that at some point.
Yeah, put it up there. Lloyd, thanks for your time. Thank you.
Great chatting with you, Daniel. Thanks.